Welcome to True Crime Intel. I'm Williams, and today I bring you a story that will chill you to your core. A story of love turned lethal, betrayal so deep it shatters families, and a crime that has left an entire community in mourning. In this episode, we reveal every harrowing detail about the murder of Tameisha Price, a devoted mother who was just days away from meeting her unborn daughter, Malaysia Leani Price. Imagine waking up on a cold January morning, expecting the promise of a new day, and instead facing the unthinkable. A knock on your door that heralds your last moments. That is exactly what happened to 34-year-old Tameisha Price in Toledo, Ohio. Tonight, you will learn how a trusted man turned into a remorseless killer, how a simple knock became a death sentence, and why new evidence now suggests that there may have been yet another player in this premeditated act of violence. If you care about uncovering the truth behind these unspeakable crimes, please take a moment to subscribe to True Crime Intel and like this video. Your support helps us continue to expose the darkness hidden in our communities.
At 6 this week, the trial for two men accused of shooting and killing a pregnant woman is set to start, but now they want a delay. Prosecutors allege the pair planned and carried out the murder of Tameisha Price, who was 9 months pregnant. But now new evidence has come to light. 13 Action News reporter Alexis Means is live with this story, all new at 6.
It was early morning on January 24th, 2024. The cold air had settled over Norton Place in Toledo, Ohio, and the streets lay quiet, the kind of silence that only comes before the world fully awakens. A single porch light flickered outside the modest home of Tameisha Price, casting long, ghostly shadows across the driveway. Inside, everything was set for a joyous celebration. Tameisha, a devoted mother and respected community leader, was preparing for her upcoming baby shower. Her nursery was immaculate, with tiny pink dresses and neatly folded baby blankets waiting for the arrival of her daughter, whom she had already named Malaysia Leani Price. But that morning, as the neighborhood lay in the stillness of pre-dawn, fate was about to deal a devastating blow. Out of the darkness, a car pulled up silently. Inside the vehicle, a man sat gripping the steering wheel tightly. He wasn't a stranger. He was someone Tameisha once trusted, someone she had loved. His name was Paris James. And he wasn't alone. Just a few feet away, another man stepped out into the cold night. His breath was visible as he joined Paris. This was Jerry Scott, a close friend of Paris, a man who would soon become complicit in a crime that would forever alter lives. A loud knock on the door shattered the stillness. Voices rose in anger. A brief argument ensued as the night air filled with escalating tension. Then came the gunshots, sharp, piercing sounds that cut through the silence like a knife. By the time a neighbor, startled awake by the commotion, peered through their curtains, it was already too late. Tameisha Price lay lifeless in front of her home. In that moment, everything changed. The very house where she had once rocked her children to sleep, where she had decorated for her baby shower, became the scene of unspeakable horror. Inside the home, her two young sons, Jaden and Lizzie, watched in terror. The bullets hadn't just taken their mother. They had stolen their childhood, leaving them to bear the trauma of witnessing such brutality. Authorities rushed to the scene after a frantic 911 call. When paramedics arrived, they found Tameisha unresponsive, her body riddled with bullets, and her unborn daughter, Malaysia Leani, robbed of a chance to take her first breath. Paris James and Jerry Scott vanished into the night, their escape executed with chilling efficiency. A moment that would haunt the community of Norton Place forever. Before we delve further into the dark events of that fateful night, it's essential to understand who Tameisha Price truly was. More than a name and a headline, she was a beacon of light, a devoted mother, a compassionate friend, and a leader in her community. Born on May 22, 1989 in Toledo, Ohio, Tameisha, affectionately known as Misha by those closest to her, was the youngest and only daughter in a family of 4 siblings. Cherished, protected, and encouraged to dream big, she grew up to become someone whose purpose was to help others. After attending Rogers High School and Apostolic Christian Academy, she pursued a career in the medical field at Herring University. Her journey led her to become a lead case manager at New Concepts, where she dedicated herself to guiding troubled youth and offering hope in the face of hardship. Her involvement extended beyond her professional life. Tameisha was deeply connected to her community and her faith, participating in several church organizations, singing in the youth choir, organizing events, and serving as a role model for young women. At home, her greatest joy was being a mother. Her two sons, Jaden, a talented drummer with a gift for music, and Lizzie, a rising basketball star, knew her as their protector and guiding light. In late 2023, hope shimmered even brighter when Tameisha discovered she was pregnant with her third child, a daughter she had already named Malaysia Leani. The anticipation was palpable. Her nursery was ready, decorations were chosen, and she was counting down the days until she could hold her baby and introduce her to her loving family. But that promise of new life and happiness would never be fulfilled. Now let us step back to the relationship that became central to this tragedy. After leaving a previous relationship, Tameisha thought she had found a fresh start with Paris James, the father of her unborn child. Initially, their relationship appeared promising, a chance for a new beginning. However, those close to her soon noticed that not everything was as it seemed with Paris. He had a troubled past, marked by conflict and instability. When Tameisha shared the news of her pregnancy, instead of celebrating, Paris reacted with tension and pressure. He did not want the baby. He tried to convince her to end the pregnancy, but Tameisha stood firm. This was her daughter, and she would bring her into the world with or without his support. Behind closed doors, what started as disappointment quickly grew into deep-seated resentment. Paris's frustration morphed into outright anger, and his need for control intensified. The very man Tameisha once trusted was transforming into someone unrecognizable, a man whose jealousy and rage would soon lead him down a path of no return. Those who knew her saw a woman of great strength and conviction, determined to embrace motherhood and build a new life. Yet the growing storm within Paris was setting the stage for a tragedy that no one could have foreseen. Let's rewind to the day before the murder, a day that should have been filled with joy and anticipation. Tameisha, 8 months pregnant, was busy preparing for her baby shower. Every detail was meticulously planned. She had picked out decorations, set up a beautiful nursery, and carefully arranged tiny pink dresses and baby blankets, all waiting for the moment she would welcome her daughter, Malaysia Leani, into the world. While she focused on the promise of a bright future, dark plans were already in motion. Consumed by anger and a desperate need for control, Paris James had made up his mind. His frustration reached a level where he decided that if Tameisha wouldn't comply with his demands, he would take matters into his own hands. He reached out to his close friend, Jerry Scott, and involved Shetwia Triplet, a woman who would later help provide a false alibi for him. In whispered conversations and through text messages, every detail of a premeditated plan was set in motion. Oblivious to the darkness gathering around her, Tameisha continued preparing for her baby shower, smiling as she folded baby clothes and envisioned the life she was about to begin. As dawn broke on January 24, 2024, the quiet streets of Norton Place bore witness to a horror that would forever change lives. It was 5 a.m. and the world was still wrapped in the hush of early morning. Streetlights flickered along the road, casting long, eerie shadows that danced on the pavement. Inside her home, Tameisha began to stir, unaware that her routine morning was about to be shattered. Outside, in the biting cold of Toledo, a car pulled up silently. Inside were Paris James and Jerry Scott, determined to execute their deadly plan. They were not there to reconcile or talk. They were there to end a life. Paris, his breath visible in the frigid air, stepped out first. His face was set in a hard expression, and the way he clutched his waistband spoke of the rage building inside him for months. Behind him, Jerry followed in silence, every step deliberate as they moved toward the house. As Tameisha began to awaken, perhaps expecting a familiar face or a friendly greeting, a loud knock shattered the fragile morning calm. In that split second, voices rose in anger, a brief, heated exchange that hinted at deeper conflicts. Tameisha, frightened and confused, tried to retreat inside, but Paris was relentless. his voice filled with anger and baseless accusations, demanded she come outside. Before she could fully comprehend what was happening, Paris reached for his waistband. In an instant, the first gunshot rang out, a deafening sound that froze time. One shot after another filled the air, and Tameisha's body collapsed onto the cold pavement outside her home. Inside, her two young sons, Jaden and Lizzie, stood in paralyzing horror, witnessing their mother's final moments. Their childhood was stolen in that instant. Paris lowered his gun slowly, his hands still trembling, and without a word, he and Jerry turned and walked away, vanishing into the night as if they had never been there. The scene left behind was one of pure devastation. A mother taken in an instant, a community left reeling, and two children forced to bear an unbearable loss. By sunrise, the quiet neighborhood of Norton Place had transformed into a crime scene. Police tape was stretched across the front of Tameisha Price's home, sealing off the spot where she had taken her last breath. Flashing red and blue lights cast ominous shadows as detectives began piecing together the evidence. A frantic 911 call had alerted authorities, and when paramedics arrived, they found Tameisha unresponsive, her body riddled with bullets, and her unborn daughter, Malaysia Leani, robbed of a first breath. The shock spread quickly throughout Toledo. Investigators combed through the scene, gathering crucial evidence. Witnesses described seeing a dark-colored car speeding away, and neighbors recalled the disturbing sound of gunshots in the early morning stillness. Forensic analysts made a shocking discovery on the murder weapon. Along with fingerprints belonging to Paris James and Jerry Scott, there was DNA from a third person. Who was this unknown accomplice? What role did they play in this premeditated act of violence? This revelation deepened the mystery, transforming the case from a crime of passion into a carefully orchestrated murder planned in advance. In the days following the crime, law enforcement worked relentlessly. Within 48 hours, a warrant was issued for the arrest of Paris James. Jerry Scott was also located, and even Shatwia Triplet, the woman who had helped provide a false alibi, was taken into custody. The subsequent courtroom became the stage for the community's grief and outrage. Paris James, dressed in an orange jumpsuit with his wrists bound in heavy metal cuffs, stood before the judge with an emotionless expression that belied the horror of his actions. Tameisha's family, huddled together, with faces etched with grief and disbelief, demanded justice for the life that had been so brutally taken. Text messages and phone records presented in court proved that the murder had been meticulously planned days in advance. Testimony from Tameisha's own children forced everyone to relive the trauma of that night. In one heart-rending moment, her cousin, voice trembling yet resolute, declared, "We accepted you as family. We never thought you'd be the one to take her life." Paris offered no apology, only a cold silence. The charges were severe. Paris James for aggravated murder, Jerry Scott as an accomplice, and Shatwia Triplet for obstructing justice. Yet, despite the legal proceedings, one question remained. Was justice truly served? Could any punishment undo the damage inflicted on a family and a community? If this story moves you and you believe every detail of this tragic case must be remembered, please like this video and subscribe to True Crime Intel. Your support ensures that the voices of victims like Tameisha Price are never silenced. To fully grasp the magnitude of this tragedy, we must listen to the many voices it has affected. Tameisha's family remembers her as a vibrant soul, a mother, mentor, friend, and guiding light. Her children, though too young to fully comprehend the loss, now carry the burden of having witnessed their mother's final moments. Investigators described the night as a meticulously planned act of violence, one that left behind more questions than answers, with the discovery of a third person's DNA on the murder weapon. Even the perpetrators, in their own distorted way, provide insight into how a relationship once filled with hope transformed into a lethal nightmare. Tameisha Price's tragic story is not merely a recounting of events, it's a cautionary tale with essential lessons. Small red flags, such as controlling behavior and jealousy, can escalate into dangerous patterns if left unchecked. Even when someone attempts to move on and build a new life, the shadow of a controlling partner can persist. Trust your instincts and seek help if you ever feel unsafe. Domestic violence often begins subtly and hides behind the guise of love and care, but it can quickly spiral out of control. Let us return to that fateful morning, the moment when everything changed. Picture it, 5 a.m. on January 24th, 2024, with the world shrouded in darkness. Outside Tameisha's home, a car had pulled up silently. Inside, Paris James and Jerry Scott prepared to carry out their deadly plan. As Tameisha began to awaken, expecting perhaps a familiar face, a loud knock shattered the silence. In that split second, heated words were exchanged, and before she could fully comprehend the danger, Paris reached for his gun. The sound of the first gunshot was deafening, followed by more until Tameisha collapsed onto the cold pavement. Her two young sons stood frozen, their lives forever altered by the sight of their mother's final moments. Even as Paris and Jerry disappeared into the night, the echoes of that terrible morning continued to haunt the community. Despite the arrests of Paris James, Jerry Scott, and Shatwiya triplet, one disturbing mystery lingers. Forensic evidence revealed the presence of a third person's DNA on the murder weapon. Who is this unknown individual? What role did they play in this premeditated act? This unanswered question leaves us with a haunting reminder that even when a case seems resolved, there can be hidden layers waiting to be uncovered. Months have passed since that cold January morning, yet the memory of Tameisha Price remains a painful wound in the hearts of those who loved her. Her name, once synonymous with hope and resilience, now stands as a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked domestic violence. The community of Toledo has been united in grief. Social media posts, candlelight vigils, and protests have all echoed the outcry for justice and for change. Although the legal process has delivered its verdict, the loss of Tameisha Price continues to demand reflection and vigilance. As we conclude this account, I want to leave you with a final message. Tameisha Price's story is a call to action. It reminds us to remain vigilant, to support those in dangerous relationships, and to never ignore the warning signs that can lead to irreversible tragedy. If you or someone you know feels unsafe, please reach out to trusted friends, professionals, or local support organizations. No one should ever have to live in fear. Was justice truly served in Tameisha's case? Did the legal system do enough to hold those responsible accountable? And what more can we do to protect vulnerable individuals from such predatory behavior? I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a respectful conversation about how we can work together to prevent such tragedies in the future. If this story has touched you, please like this video, subscribe to True Crime Intel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another case that demands to be told. Your engagement is crucial in our fight for truth and justice. Tameisha Price was a woman with everything to live for, a devoted mother, a community pillar, and a beacon of hope. Her life was tragically cut short by a man who was supposed to protect her, and in a matter of seconds, her future was stolen. This is a story of love turned deadly, of trust betrayed, and of a crime so calculated that even the evidence points to further mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Let her story serve as a constant reminder of the hidden dangers of toxic relationships and the importance of recognizing the subtle warning signs before it's too late. Thank you for watching True Crime Intel. I'm Williams, and I will continue to fight for the truth and for justice for victims like Tameisha Price. If you found this story important, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another case. Until our next case, stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember that every story matters.